Happy Kindness Day, everyone. I'm Marissa,
Gracias.
and welcome to our Young Author Workshop, where we're going to guide you through the publishing process. And today, Sammy and I have the honor of introducing you to a really special person, the host for this workshop, Jacqueline Camacho Ruiz, and she's one of the most kindest, most talented people I know. She's an author, an entrepreneur, and she's even an airplane pilot, to name a few of her skills. She's published a few different children's books as well. She's going to tell you all about them. The one I'm most familiar with is The Amazing World of Aviation, but she's got so many others. So I know you're going to enjoy this workshop and you're going to learn a lot through Jacqueline. And Jacqueline, thank you for your kindness.
Thank you. Oh, what an incredible honor to be with all of you today, and especially celebrating Kindness Day. This dream of yours, Marissa, is now permeating into more and more communities and families to remind us that kindness is really the way that we can live a fulfilled life. So thank you, Marissa, for creating this amazing vision. Thank you, Samantha, for inspiring us to be kind every single day. Thank you. What an honor to be here. And I think we're ready to dive into this amazing workshop. Are you guys ready? I see Emma joining us. Perfect. And I know, we're going to start having more amazing guests join us. I know Marissa and Samantha will be joining us as guests to this incredible workshop. And later on, I have an amazing surprise, a special guest, our youngest author at Fig Factor Media Publishing, joining us for a special Q&A so that you can hear from an 11-year-old that is becoming an author as we speak. So without further ado, I want to tell you a little bit about Jackie Camacho Ruiz. Who is this woman, in front of you today? I will tell you that I fell in love with books since I was a little girl. I started reading when I was 4, and I had an incredible exposure to incredible books and encyclopedias that really took my breath away as a young girl, and thinking, how can I apply those things in my life? And how can I use those amazing principles of self-help and personal development and helping others achieve their dreams and really make them part of my life and my existence? So that was my everlasting question. Every time I was thinking, how can I do that? And little by little, I started to deploy and apply all these amazing things that I learned as a little girl so that I can make the dreams of other people come true, and therefore my dreams I knew would become true as well. So how did I get started with books? I had come to the United States when I was 14 years old. I didn't speak a word of English when I came. Imagine that. So I knew that because of all the amazing books that I read as a little girl, I knew that I had to do something that was different. I absolutely had to begin applying those things that I had learned and ask people what their dreams were. And one of the first things that dawned on me was, well, how can I do this if I don't even speak the language? So I started really focusing on learning English when I was 14, even though it felt to me like I was never going to be able to learn. But the beauty of this was that I began to kind of feel the magic of communication, the magic of the sentences coming together in a language that I had no idea if I was ever going to be able to learn. And then kind of playing games with myself with saying, you know what if I took a word and I changed it for another word? So once I knew the structure of a sentence, I knew that what I had to do was just make more sentences with different words. And instead of saying, I walk the dog, I could say, I run with the cat. I run with the dog. I can change things. And it became kind of a challenging game for me. And within about a year, I started dreaming and thinking in English. And my mom said, well, that means that you're becoming bilingual. And even though I didn't feel that, I kind of got a sense of confidence and saying, wow, I must be becoming bilingual, right? And it was just such an amazing awakening for me that the following year I decided to take German. So when I graduated high school, I was not only part of the National Honor Society, but I was also part of the German Honor Society. So when I was 21, it was probably one of the most difficult things for a young woman, and that is that I was diagnosed with cancer. And just about 2 years later, I was diagnosed with precancer by my liver that led to completely redo my digestive system. They told me that I had 1/3% chance of basically living a normal life. Imagine hearing that when you're 23, this is the second time that you've heard the word cancer, and all you want is to live your dreams. All you want is to be an entrepreneur in the land of dreams. All you want is to be an amazing mom for your children, or dad, or family member. And for me, I thought it was the end of the road. And I remember telling the doctor, "Hey, doctor, thank you so much for telling me that I only have 1/3 of a chance to live a normal life. But next Thursday, I have finals. I'm graduating with honors from College of DuPage." And he looked at me, he smiled, and he said, "Your positive attitude saved you." Those two experiences with cancer at 21 and 23 really gave me the fuel that I needed, gave me that sense of urgency to serve, to begin a path of something that I've dreamed my entire life, which is to be an author. I had no idea what kind of book I was going to write. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But little did I know that this inspiration of writing my first business book was going to come to me by the age of 26. It took me about 3.5 years of collecting my thoughts and ideas as an entrepreneur, and about 7 months to put that together. So imagine, it was almost 4.5 years of pouring your heart into a journal that later became my very first book. So how did I get here to now be in front of you, telling you all these amazing tips that I'm going to share with you, so that you, as a young person, as a person of any age, can write your own book, especially your children's book. I will tell you that, but before I do that, that book that I wrote in 2010, has led me to writing and publishing another 16 books. Let me show you for the first time on camera my 17th book. This beautiful book that I literally just got the copy yesterday. And this book is it says on the back, "The world is full of adventure and dreams. Join the Pilotina," AKA me, because I made up a word, pilot plus Latina, it's Pilotina. And as she travels the world, all around the world, sharing inspiration everywhere she goes. She journeys from Mexico, where she explores ancient ruins, to Dubai, climbing the tallest buildings in the world, among many other amazing places. Along the way, she meets incredible people that have inspired her to keep on dreaming. In the adventures of Pilotina, our beloved pilot shares her best tip to live life to the fullest. So that is my 17th book in 11 years. Beautiful little scenarios. Let me share with you. So with that, I would like to get us kicked off on this amazing journey. Now that you know that I fly planes, I write books, I dream big, and I help as many people as I can to join me in this amazing journey around the world. Last year, in 2019, I had an opportunity to be in 6 countries, 3 continents, in just 80 days, sharing inspiration, launching my 16th book in Belgium, in Paris, Dubai, Costa Rica, Panama, all these incredible places, Mexico, and all over the United States. So that gives you an idea of how authorship can open up doors for you. And now what I'd like to share is I'm going to share my screen of the process that we usually go through when creating an amazing children's book for you. And along the way, I'll give you tips and things that you can do. So now I'm going to share the screen with you. Now, okay, perfect. So now you can see me there. Perfect. So This is the incredible and amazing process of bringing your book to life. So let's say that you have been dreaming about publishing your own book. Let's say that you've had a thought, an idea, a dream in your mind to become an author. How do you even begin? You're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and you're thinking, I don't even know how to begin thinking about this. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things that you should be thinking about and adapting our process to your process. The very first thing is that, the one thing that makes a book come to life is your initial idea. Without having a theme and an idea, there's no book, right? So that is when you have an inspiration in your heart to write a book, the very first thing that you should think of is, why do I want to write a book? What do I want to share with the world? And most importantly, why now? You might have thought about that because people keep asking you the same questions over again, maybe because you had an experience, or maybe because you see something in the world that should be fixed. Maybe you see the way that people do things and you're like, I would do them completely differently. Or maybe you love bubblegum, for example, and you want to teach people the amazing journey of something becoming a bubblegum, the different flavors. I mean, it could be a book about anything and everything that your heart desires. That is the beauty of you becoming an author and using that initial thought and idea of what do I want to do. If you have an opportunity, what I would do in the first step is to brainstorm with maybe somebody that has done it before. Maybe somebody that you know that has published a children's book can give you some guidance on, hey, you know what? This is what I did. This is my experience. Or perhaps you can take a trip to the library and be surrounded by amazing books. So think about people that have been there. Think about people that can help you make this happen. And, ultimately, I can show you some other examples. This is a beautiful book that I did for my dad that began with one theme of how children can become guardians of nature. That idea, that thought, all of a sudden led to this fantasy adventure that takes you into this incredible epic journey on Grandpa Don Chuy getting inside a tree with his grandchildren and going on this epic adventure, meeting characters, going inside nature to eventually become a guardian of nature. So that was the idea. And my dad had that idea. He's 72 years old. And I wrote it down as an inspiration. I said, one day I'm going to help my daddy become an author. One day I'm going to help turn that idea into something so beautifully that you can feel, that you can touch, that becomes a legacy for so many people. And see, that's the beauty. The beauty about you deciding to become an author is that you now have something tangible that people can remember you by. You now have your thoughts, ideas captured in something so beautiful that makes people inspired. Another one is this one. This one is for my inspirations of becoming a licensed pilot here in the United States. So not only are you able to look at that purple runway and see, that's the beauty when you have a children's book, that you can be so creative. You can think outside the box. You can bring your imagination forward. You can think of all the amazing things like, I have a purple runway, like, wow. And other people like, the Wright brothers. And that the idea that inspired this book was my passion for aviation. I wanted people to know the amazingness and the magic that happens when you follow a dream, and elevating other people that have done the same thing in the area of flying airplanes in this case, which has become one of my biggest passions. So once you have a theme and an idea, then you have to start thinking about, what does that look like? So in other words, most movies, like if you watch any of the Disney movies, any major movies that left you captivated, that left you with like, wow, I just love this movie, they all follow an 8-point story arc. They all follow what we call the hero's journey. So when you think of that initial thought, initial idea, then you're thinking about how is this character or this vegetable that is a character or this fruit that is a character or this little kitty or an animal, how is that character going to follow this amazing hero's journey, which typically looks like this? And they begin at a place and then they end at a new reality. So you have to investigate more about the 8-point story arc so that you understand how people connect with your book, with your ideas, with your thoughts. Because if you can do that, if you can do that effectively, if you can take an initial concept, develop that character that is going to follow this hero's journey, you'll have a captive audience. You'll have the ideas of how you make things come to life. And one of the first things that I always recommend is that once you have that idea, that character, is that you create some sort of an outline, typically in a children's book using the 8-point story arc. Now let me tell you something that is super important in children's books that is not as important in chapter books. You cannot begin any of the illustrations before you create the content in a children's book. So give you an idea. When you begin that thought and you identify the key points of the character and you identify then the journey that they're going to follow, then it's time for you to begin working and creating your storyboard. So even if before you begin the editing, so you have these main thoughts and main ideas of what you want the book to do, who's the character, what is the character going to do, and most importantly, where's that character going to end because this epic adventure that you're taking them through. Once you do that, then you start figuring out, okay, I can have an editor or somebody that is really good with words review the content, or I can begin working on the storyboard, which is the high-level journey that you're capturing for that character. So I'm going to show you what I do. And I'm going to share with you some of the important tools that I use. I'm going to probably have to move back just a tad over here. Number one tool I use 0.38 millimeter fine point color pens. This happened to be German, and Daisy Jimenez, an amazing good friend of mine, gave them to me as a gift because she knows how much I love creating with colors, especially when they're fine points. I typically buy them from a Japanese store in New York or Amazon. They're typically 0.38 millimeter. This happened to be German, but they could be any background, right? And the most important tool that I use to create a storyboard, and this is actually a storyboard from one of the clients that we're working on, is a big one of these amazing big 11 by 17 or even bigger. I think this is actually 14 by 17. When you are dreaming of your book, you gotta dream big. And if you want to dream big, you need colors and you need a big sheet of paper to make that happen, so that you're not bound by limitations of a little tiny sheet of paper of your regular notebook. So this is actually an actual example of a book that we're working on right now. And this is the storyboard. So again, once you have the content, then you begin laying out the pages. A traditional storyboard for a children's book or a traditional size is typically 24 pages to 40 pages. On average, you have 32 pages to 40 pages. So when you're doing your storyboard, you always need to make sure that you do the storyboard in multiples of 4 pages, because that is how a book is bound. So you're looking at all the components, and I'm identifying the back cover, the front cover, leaving a page empty, the title page, copyright page, dedication, acknowledgments, welcome page, and then you begin laying out all the components. And in fact, this one even went to the other side of the page. And that's some artwork from my daughter. So think about, you begin identifying that, but you probably think, where do all the content comes from? Well, guess what? The manuscript for any book comes from something like this. It's a Word document that features, this one we're beginning to do bilingual, so you see both different colors, but you can tell that I've taken this and I have been able to share some of these pieces here, some of the ideas, thinking about the characters. How do we share the characters? How do they look like? And typically this is the manuscript that makes the storyboard come to life. So with that being said, you have your 0.38 millimeter pens. Every color, it's important because when you're dreaming, you're creating, you're imagining, you need to dream in color, especially for a children's book. Then you have a beautiful, big, huge 14 by 18 artist sketchbook that becomes your storyboard platform, your canvas. Oh, perfect. You know what? It was saying that, great, that because I was sharing my screen, you guys didn't see that. So this is how the manuscript looks like. I'm going to show it to you again. Again, your notebooks, your pens, and the big sheet of paper. So let me go back to sharing my screen so you can see that, and I'll be cognizant to know that if I'm sharing my screen, you can't see me. So perfect. So now imagine this. So now we're here. We have the thought, idea. We know what the character is. We know what the character looks like. We know how the character reacts because we've identified everything about the character. And now you begin creating that beautiful manuscript, that guideline or outline, and the storyboard begins to come to life. At that point, one of the things, once you have the storyboard, and only when you have the storyboard, you begin to think about the illustrations. You don't do that before. I know a lot of authors get super excited about the pictures of the book, but I will tell you that it'll save you so many headaches if you focus on, first, really finalizing, fine-tuning the content, the storyboard, and then leading with the illustrations. It'll save you so much time and effort for you and the illustrator. If you are the one doing the illustrations, you need to plan it out perfectly. You need to know exactly where the illustrations go. You need to know if it's a half-page illustration, if it's a partial illustration, or if the illustration is going to take the entire page. You need to know if you're going to have one word on that page or you're going to have 50 words on the page. And you need to know that and visualize it way before you begin working on those illustrations. So it is very important that you have a proofreader look at the content. Now, that is somebody completely different than an editor. The editor, a chief editor or developmental editor, will take out the content and say, you know what? You are missing an important part of the hero's journey. You are missing, step number 3 out of the 8. You need to really go deeper into step number 3 in order for the reader to have that trust with you. That is what a developmental editor does. Then a line editor is somebody that takes a look at the content more with a fine comb and says, you know what? No, you need to really think through the way that you're saying these words, the way that you're putting together the words or the actions. So as we start to connect with that, then you get to the proofreader, which is step number 6. Then now the proofreader is looking at your punctuation, your grammar, your commas, your accents, your whatever, everything else that the developmental editor, the line editor missed. The proofreader should be able to catch it, and it's typically the last person that takes a look at something. So if you are venturing on this amazing journey to become an author, you gotta think of, who do I know, and especially if you want to save money, who do I know that knows English language really well or Spanish? Who do I know that is like my English teacher, for example, that can help you. Who do I know that somebody knows that someone knows that can help me make this book the best that it could be? So then the magic of the book comes to life. And this is where I love it. There are so many key milestones in the journey. And the next step here is probably one of the most important milestones, because first you have the idea, then you have your outline, then you have the content, then you have the storyboard, and all those are very important. But when you begin to create the illustrations, and you have the illustrations ready, and you have the content ready, and you begin to unite them with the design, which is step number 7, wow. That is the first time, even in a digital format, that you say, I am becoming an author. It is such an exciting journey, because this is typically the time where you not only get to see all the beautiful pages with the content and all the illustrations, but you also now get to see the cover of the book. So you have envisioned this dream. You have worked so hard to make this dream come to life. And now you get to see it for the first time in the design. That's typically somebody, not someone that does the illustrations, as somebody very different. A designer is somebody that takes the illustrations and marries them with the content of the book so that you can have a beautiful layout. And now that's the time where you as the author say, yes, I want this page to be in this page. I want this page to be here. Perfect. Everything is in place. Or I want to make a few changes. Here's the thing about becoming an author, and this is where you need to be so authentic to yourself, because in any of these steps that I'm sharing with you, you as the author are the pilot in command of this amazing dream, meaning that your incredible journey as an author drives you to create. You might make changes every step of the way. You might change your mind on the title at the end of the book. You might want to add another page. You might want to add another illustration in the journey because you went out with your family and you were inspired to add a little butterfly on page 17. You need to know and follow your heart in this journey, because a book is an extension of you. My German teacher in high school said to me one time that writing was an extension of your soul. So when I think about that, I think of, wow, how beautiful is it to know that I'm extending my soul every time that I decide to become an author, every time that I write a book, every time that I write something on a page. I am actually extending my soul. And that's what you're doing with a book. And you probably have thought about a book because you want to make a difference. You thought about it because it's one of your dreams, and you want to share what that dream is with as many people as possible. That's the reason why you think about sharing an incredible book with the world. And I commend you for that, because it's not easy. It's a process that has ups and downs. Some days you feel inspired. Some days you feel like you don't want to do it anymore. But as long as you keep focused, as long as you stay true to yourself and say, you know what, this is exactly how I want this book to be, and you don't publish that book until every stone is turned, until every word is checked, until every design, every page is checked and has your blessing, totally fine. That's how you make this dream come true. And another big milestone, now once the design is there, is that when you get your very first copy. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I want to share with you the two amazing. I'm going to share with you. Well, before I shared with you my aviation book, my dad's book about nature, and my 17th book, which is The Adventures of Pilotina, right? I love this size, by the way, 8.5 by 8.5. It's an amazing, beautiful size for illustrations. So these are the actual books. And this one I got yesterday in the mail. But I'm going to show you now something very special. Not a lot of people get to see. And this is such a special process or step in the process for any of you becoming an author, you'll see that the books that I'm about to show you on the back, they look different. Well, there's one here. Check this out. They're different. Actually, this one is, where's that other one? Okay, let me show you this example. So these books are different. Why are they different? Do you see something across the top? See, this one doesn't have it. This is so exciting, I love it. See, let's look at these two examples. One has a line across the top and the other one doesn't. Guess what? This copy is what is called a galley copy. Galley. This basically means that this is your very first, very first copy of your own book. So this copy is so special. It says not for resale across the top because this is the copy that the author gets for the first time. So after all that dreaming and all the process and the tears and the nights that you've invested into putting the soul into this amazing book, into this amazing journey, you now have your very first copy and you can hold it in your hands for the first time ever. In this copy, you know, sometimes I recommend that authors frame it or they keep it in a safe place. I haven't been able to see my dad because of the pandemic, but last time I went to Mexico, I forgot to give it to him, but this copy is going to go to my dad so he can keep it as a beautiful keepsake because all the other copies look like this, but except this copy looks so special. So, and this one is another example of that. Look, this is my memoir, which was my book number 3. And this one is a version in Spanish. And this one has that same thing, which means that it's the very special galley copy. So I keep them in a very safe, amazing place with that. Okay, so now let's talk about something that excites me so much. If you haven't seen or haven't felt my energy of the passion that I feel for books and authors and this magical journey to dream and to create beautiful pieces of art with an idea. Let me share with you something very special. Now you see my aviation book. You see my Pilotinas in Aviation book, right? So you see that they have, it has beautiful illustrations of my travels around the world, from Dubai to, all these different places, right? Guess what? This is one of the most exciting things in the journey of an author when you think of how am I going to make my book come to life? Oh my goodness. So now introducing to you these beautiful posters. Posters that are generated from the same illustrations of the book. So you have beautiful poster illustration in English and Spanish, so that when you do events, you can autograph a copy of this that allows people to get excited about buying the entire book. And taking, for example, one of my book series, and I'm going to show you a beautiful example. This is a board game that was created from my other book series called Today's Inspired Latina. And the idea of this is that you never, I'm trying to open the box here, you never stop dreaming. See this journey here? You never ever stop dreaming of how is this amazing book going to come to life. You can do journals based on your book. You can do online courses. You can do webinars, workshops. You can do events. When we come back out of this pandemic, you can think of creating a beautiful deck of cards. You can do posters. You can do board games based on your book. I'm now working on another board game. I'm going to put it back there. I'm working on another board game that is going to be about this amazing journey of aviation and how you can be the pilot in command of your life. So an example of that is this beautiful teddy bear that I also created after Pilotina to make this happen. And I know we have our very special guest joining us in a couple of minutes here. And but I want to show you, once you become an author, your world is going to expand. You are going to think of so many amazing ways to make an impact in the life of people that I guarantee you that once you get a taste of authorship at any age, because you could be any age to become an author, even though when I was 26, I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know if I feel worthy of people calling me an author. It's perfectly normal. But once you get a taste of authorship, and once you get a taste of the magical journey, and you get your 0.38 millimeter pens out to begin creating your storyline and your storyboard, you realize how magical this journey is going to be for you. So I want to thank all of you for being part of this amazing journey today on Kindness Day, May 16th, by the incredible Marisa Jelinowski and her amazing daughter Samantha, that inspires us so much. And I am super excited now because we have a special guest joining us. This very special guest is the youngest author that we've had an opportunity to work with at 11 years old, that decided to become an author. And in 2019, I decided, because I'm in this magical world of books and aviation and all the things that happen every day, I decided that I was going to launch a contest for young people to basically get their book published through my company, Fig Factor Media Publishing. It was called the Young Dreamer Author Contest. And many young people applied with their video. And Sebastian Reyna captivated the judges in a way that just said, he's got to be the winner. And he is so talented, not only with writing, really coming up with those ideas and all the things that I shared, but he's also very talented with illustration, which is very rare to find. You either are really good with content or really good with artistic pieces. And Sebastian has both of these elements, in one package. And now I know that we are going to be working on his storyboard so that he can do the illustrations and we can get this amazing book published for him. So without further ado, please welcome our special guest today, Sebastian Reyna. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jackie. I'm very pleased to be here.
I'm so excited. I mean, you are quite the amazing young author, and I know that your story is gonna continue to inspire so many people around the world. I know you were recently in Dominican Republic launching a book that you were part of, and now this amazing book that we're gonna be talking about today is going to be your first official solo book, which is so exciting to share. But I'm going to ask you some questions. I know we were kind of going back and forth on some things, like we did last time with the conversation that we had on Facebook Live. And today I want, for the entire audience watching us, I want to find out, how did you get the idea or the inspiration for your book?
So the idea came from after watching a film that I loved. It's called Tolkien. It's about the author J.R.R. Tolkien, who created the books The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And I just got so inspired and I wanted to create a novel. And so I took my friends, my family, a notebook, of course, and I made it into a novel that's part fantasy and part real life.
I love that. And see, that's how the idea was born, right? I mean, it's like, and how do you turn an idea? Because a lot of us have ideas, but what you decided to do is begin taking the step to make that idea come to life, right? You reached out and you made it, begin to have that process. Can you tell us, who are the authors that inspire you the most and why?
So, well, I have a lot of them, but one of them is, of course, J.R. Tolkien. He inspired me because I thought, how did he create like this forest? How did he create this dark lord? How did he create the hobbits, the elves, the landscapes, and I just fell in love with that. And another author that inspired me, well, he's also a cartoonist, was Jeff Smith. I loved his detail that he put. I loved his graphic novel Bone that just really inspired me. And that actually came before Tolkien, and that launched fantasy into my head. But then Tolkien also came along, and he made it spark even more. And another author that I really connect with is, I think that he is Dave Pilkey, the creator of the Dogman books. I loved his writing, and even in his books, the Captain Underpants series, I didn't just love the writing the drawings that he put in it, but I also loved the words that he put. He put a lot of good literature in it, and I just loved it. Also, the Harry Potter books also really inspired me. J.K. Rowling, I think, I think she's the one that really, she gave me, I think, one of the greatest advice, and that's how it all started.
That's amazing. You know, it's incredible how we can, I love what you said about launching your imagination. I think that we can all learn from that, because sometimes, you know, especially in situations like this, we're going through a very difficult time. A lot of families are suffering. And when you know that you have a resource to be creative, to be innovative, to think outside the box, to come up with board games, to come up with books, to come up with ideas, stories. And instead of using that time to be sorry for yourself, use that time to launch that imagination, like you said. And like the more that you do that, I find that, like, I have been creating magic and books and products and stuff for 14 years. And the more that I do this, like in the last 3 years, has intensified, because the more that I use that muscle of like creativity and imagination and innovation, the more that I'm like, I get more ideas. I'm like, my brain never stops. Like, oh my God, what's going to be my next book? And what's going to be the next, thing? So I really admire the fact that you're starting that, recognizing the power of your imagination so early on, because I wish I would have started that young, you know, with this muscle that I've developed over the years. You know, because I was passionate about books, but I wasn't creating necessarily, you know, until I was 26. I wrote my first book. Tell us about your book and, you know, kind of like the storyline of your book.
So the book is about a boy who's kind of like me. His name is Paul, and he doesn't really fit in that much at school, because a lot of the kids at school, they're talking about video games and phones and a lot of technology, and he is, I think, the sort of kid that really connects with me, and because he loves writing and drawing like me. And these 4 friends that he has, they find this that is really mysterious. They feel like there's something wrong with this book, that there's something really mysterious about it. And then this book draws them into a world that's like our world, and mixed with the fantasy world, put into one huge world. And they find themselves in an adventure that they will never forget. And there's going to be and I'm thinking already of a sequel. I already have the name and everything.
I love that. I love that. I'm so excited. You know what? And when you're creating, because obviously this is coming from your imagination. I mean, you're, you know, creating the characters, you're creating the storylines, you're creating how they interact with one another. How do you come up with that inspiration?
So it comes from, like, you mean like saying like the process of how?
Yeah, like how do you, you know, how do you come up with those ideas? Like, how do you come up with your inspiration, or what inspires you to create and go into your studio, which I've seen, it's such a beautiful, cool space. Like, how do you kind of find that inspiration, and, you know, for the storyline and for the books, and even for coming up with this next book, and what inspires you in that process?
Well, what inspires me is, well, of course, reading. Every day when I read, I feel a bit of I feel like my imagination is fueling up, and going out and having adventures. Like, for example, there was this little place near my neighborhood, and the name, I love the name of that place, and and it was near the golf course, and it had hills, and it had a huge river, and that really inspired me. And when I came home, I started writing about it. And I also get inspired by my own life, of course, my friends, my family, and I, of course, listen to a lot of things, because a famous writer, Judy Blume, she said, if you're a writer, of course, you're an observer. You have to observe, you have to observe, you have to write, and of course, you have to read. And so those are the things that really keep me going and inspire me.
That's beautiful. And what advice would you have for all the young writers that are listening today? Like, what advice would you share with somebody that is an aspiring young author to begin their journey?
Read a lot, and it doesn't matter what you read. Just read what you're passionate about, and write what you know. Now, I have a little tip. If a director of Pixar once said this. He said, I'm pretty sure a lot of young writers have heard the writing tip, write what you know. And he said that when he was little, he said, I don't want to write about what I know. I want to write about this and adventures. And so what that means is, write about what you like, but put your own experiences and your own life in it, and that will really captivate the readers.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's after all, it's all about being authentic. It's following your heart. It's extending your soul, like my German teacher said when I was 16, of like, every time you write, you extend your soul. And every time you write, you give others permission to do the same and to dream bigger, right? So now I want to open it up for questions. And before I do that, really quick, I just kind of want to show some of the items in the book writing process for those of you that missed it before, because I was sharing the screen and then unfortunately my face wasn't showing with some of the things, the tools that I've used. But I have a professional publishing house, and you know, the beautiful thing is that the creative process never ends in this world. And I just want to show you some of the things in the progression of how a book actually comes to life, and some of the tools, again, you know, just to kind of recap. So this is basically an example of, you know, a manuscript that is marked up, that has all these different questions, all these different feedback. I think, you know, it really never gets old to print out a sheet of paper and to really organically review and connect with, you know, with the hand. Even if we had all the computers and all the technology in the world, this is how a manuscript, you know, in raw format looks like for an author, right? And then this is a big, you know, 14 by 18, beautiful artist sketchbook. And that's typically what I use when I'm creating the storyboards like this one. And this is where, you know, I can use my 0.38 millimeter color pens. These are from Germany. Very good friend of mine gave them to me, but you can do, you know, Japanese ones those are the ones that I typically use. And you need color, right? I mean, would you agree, Sebastian, that you're using imagination? I mean, imagination is not black and white, right? You need amazing color to be able to like add dimension and add
texture and
definition, right? Like, and doing it with your hands. I mean, isn't that so beautiful to take something and draw it with your hands? Like, would you agree with that? Do you have colors in your studio too?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of them. I have these little brush pens, but they're basically watercolor, and yeah, I use a lot of color. But I don't just use that. I use regular watercolor.
Oh, that's cool.
I use a lot of color.
I love that. And see, I mean, you if you're ready to start creating, start, extending your soul through a book, you need to have all these amazing tools, big sheets of paper, pens and colors and watercolors and all these things that unleash your imagination and allow you to kind of get inside another world. When you see beautiful things around you, you're more prone to, to make more creativity happen. So I kind of just wanted to show you kind of like the journey of this book that I'm, basically about to publish in a couple of weeks for this amazing author. So exciting. I mean, it's like every time a book is born is like, ta-da, it never gets old, with, I don't know how many, I've published 17 books of my own. And by the end of the year, I'll have 23 under my name. And you know what? Never gets old. Never gets old. And what I was sharing before, take the time to create posters, deck of cards, board games, little teddy bears, that anything that can help people extend their imagination. I know that we're opening up for questions. And well, we don't have a lot of questions here. We have a very shy audience, apparently. But do you have a question for me, Sebastian? So let's turn the seat around. Like anything that you want to ask me. I mean, you've seen a little bit of what I do through your parents and the stuff. Like, is anything you want to ask about? Maybe flying planes, writing books. I don't know.
What is your process of writing a book?
Well, I use a lot of journals. I use a lot of those big sheets of paper too, if it's a visual book. And actually, that's also my process when thinking about creating other products other than a book, right? For example, a board game, I typically draw it out. Like I'll share this the screen that I had. So for creating something like this, which is the process for us to do our children's book process, I typically draw it out on a piece of paper, and then, then from there, I use those colors and those pens and all kinds of things. And then I just start creating, but it typically begins with a journal entry or a big sheet of paper when I'm starting to draw. It looks like we have one question. So it says, how long does it take from start to finish to get a book published? Where is the best place to launch your book? So 2 questions, right? Marissa, how long does it take? It could take as little or as long as you want. Typically on average, if you want to do the steps right, I'd probably say about 9 months of, just the journey. This could be a chapter book, it could be, a children's book, but usually that's, if you want to take your time, that would probably be the, kind of like on the long end. But, I've published books in 4.5 years from, because it wasn't cooked yet, it was still kind of in the process of getting those inspirations. And I've also launched a book in 2 months from concept idea to making it happen and getting an endorsement from Edward James Olmos from Hollywood. So can you do that magic? Yes, you can. And where's the best place to launch your book? I'd probably say the best place right now, especially with the limitations that we have, would be Amazon. There's so many amazing resources for you to publish your book on Amazon. And Amazon has such an amazing platform to be able to extend beyond the walls of, the United States and have people buy your books around the world. And then, they're print on demand, which is amazing because you basically make money when, you're selling the books online. You don't have to keep inventory. So that's another question. Once you've written your book, how to get it published? So there are a lot of ways to get it published. Like in the case of Sebastian, he won a contest through Fig Factor Media as a Young Dreamer Author Contest. So we're basically taking that entire process and guiding him with a professional chief editor, developmental editor, line editor, proofreader, a designer. And he's going to be providing us the content, which you have already provided us that, right? We're getting there, to review the content. And then he's going to start working on the illustrations once we define the storyboard, like I said in the process. So there's like three main ways to get it published. And, Sebastian doesn't have to worry about it because he's got us as a publishing house, which is typically we are kind of in the middle of the publishing world, right? You can self-publish and you can do everything on your own, or you can have an agent or a distributor or one of those big publishing houses that you can send your book to see if they're interested. They typically require exclusivity in that process, and they ask you to, basically send them all the information about how you're going to promote your book, how you're going to make it come to life. And then they take about 60 to 90 days to get back to you and say, yes, we're interested, we're going to publish your book, or no, we're not. Most of the publishing companies, a lot of times they say no, especially if you're a first-time author. So then in the middle of that is a publishing company like us, where we are a hybrid publishing company. We take our authors that we love the themes of their books about. We want to work with children's books, anthology books, motivational books, but we charge for the services, and the author gets a backing from a publishing house, and they get 100% of the royalty. So it's sort of kind of in between. So it's professional. It's not quite as hard as the big publishing companies. That is very rare for them to pick you up. And then on the other side, you're not doing it alone completely in an amateur kind of way, especially if it's your first book. How do you get your book in the library so they can make it available for their members? There's a lot of ways to do that. One is through distribution companies that have access to all the libraries and all the bookstores. So that's one way. The other way is that to go to the library directly and say, would you please buy a copy of my book? Could you buy one copy or two copies for the reference section? I have many of my books at many of the local libraries because they reached out to me and they purchased copies from me. So that's one way. Perfect. Now this question, I know we have just about 3 minutes left, but what is your favorite part about the writing process? The beginning, the middle, or the end? So I'm going to let you answer that really quick, and then I'll answer my part. What do you think? What have you enjoyed the most so far of writing?
What I've enjoyed the most about writing is, I think it's getting the idea and writing the manuscript, because as I'm writing, it's like one by one the ideas like coming to life, like it's near me, like literally not just on a flat piece of paper, it's like literally near me.
I love that. You know what, for me, I would probably say that I so much enjoy the process, and especially when I'm guiding other authors in the process, I try to find magical micro moments in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I always, if you don't make a big deal out of something, those key milestones, who will, right? They don't know. They've never been an author before. And what I tell them is, we're about to get to a big milestone, having the storyboard completed. We're about to get to another big milestone, the cover of your book. Like yesterday, for example, earlier this week, I unveiled the storyboard for one of our authors. And then yesterday, I unveiled the cover. But instead of me just sending a little message like, hey, here's your cover, I picked up the phone and I said, drum roll, like we're about to unveil something amazing. And she's like, okay, let me get my family, let me get my mom, and let me get my husband. And on the phone and speaker, I said, check your messages. Look at what I just sent you. And she's like, wow, she's crying, excited. So I think that, like you're saying, for you is kind of the beginning process. For me, it's like trying to find those gems of magic in the beginning, the middle, the end. And then especially because I have this amazing opportunity to guide so many authors, I try to sparkle that magic like in between. So why don't you leave us with your favorite quote? One quote that just inspires you as a writer, as an author, so that all of us that are watching can kind of walk away with that. And I'll share my quote too.
One of my favorite quotes, well, like I said, Pa's like me. So actually I don't fit in at school that much. But one of my favorite quotes is from my favorite cartoonist and writer, Dr. Seuss. He wrote, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out. And that really hit me. And I'm like, yeah, why do I have to fit in when I was like born to be outside the crowd and being unique?
I love that. Wow, that's amazing. And you know what? My favorite quote comes from aviation. I adapted this quote to represent what I stand for. We always say in aviation that taking off is optional and landing on your dreams is mandatory, or landing is mandatory. And I added dreams because we think about launching something, taking off on something, unleashing our imagination. But a lot of people kind of stop there. They don't actually land on having their books, in their hands. So if I can leave you with something today, and we are, finishing right up on time, taking off on your amazing book journey as an author is optional. You don't have to do it. But once you decide, just remember that landing on your dreams and landing on holding that first galley cup in your hands for the first time is mandatory. So with that, I want to thank the amazing Fountaindale Library in Bolingbrook. I want to thank a special thanks to Marissa Jelenowski and amazing Samantha for joining us and for inspiring us and for inviting us to be part of this. But I also want to thank all of you that are joining us today that have decided to take this Saturday afternoon to learn about the book writing process, and that you have decided to celebrate Kindest Day today. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.